In 1968, 34 soldiers climbed a hill in Vietnam. Only 11 came back. The survivors reported something impossible: transparent soldiers who moved like smoke and killed without sound. But here's the problem. According to American military records, no U.S. forces were anywhere near that hill. So who killed those 23 men? Tonight you're going to hear the confession of one of the last survivors, what he saw, what followed him home. But before I tell you what happened on Hill 428, make sure you subscribe and support Battlefield Nightmares, and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from tonight. Now let's go back to July 1968. Let's climb the hill. Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand something. I'm not telling you this because I want to. I'm telling you because I have to. Because after 57 years, the weight of it is crushing me. Because I wake up every night drenched in sweat, clawing at my sheets, screaming at things that aren't there. Or maybe they are there. Maybe they've always been there, watching, waiting. I don't know anymore. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I was there. I survived, and something came back with me. I was a soldier in the North Vietnamese Army. July 1968. I was 22 years old, young, strong, foolish enough to believe that war was the worst thing that could happen to a man. I was wrong. War is human. What happened on that hill was something else. There were 34 of us who'd climbed Hill 428. 34 young men with beating hearts and warm blood and dreams of going home. 11 came back. But I'm not sure all of us came back whole. I'm not sure all of us came back alone. The mission was simple: establish an observation post, monitor American helicopter movements, hold the position for 2 weeks. 14 days, that's all we had to do. What happened in those 5 days has never been explained. The American military says they weren't there. No units, no operations, no soldiers. They're lying. Or maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe what killed my friends weren't soldiers at all. The survivors reported things that don't make sense. Figures that were partially transparent. Enemies that moved like smoke. Soldiers who killed without sound and vanished without trace. The official report called it collective stress reaction, mass hallucination, combat fatigue. 23 men died from a hallucination. 23 bullets, 23 bodies, 23 families who never saw their sons again. That's not hallucination. That's something else. I've spent 57 years trying to forget, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, trying to live a normal life. But you can't live a normal life when something is watching you, when you feel eyes on you in the darkness, when you hear footsteps behind you that stop when you turn around. You can't live a normal life when the thing that hunted you on a hill in Vietnam followed you home. So I'm telling this story now, before it's too late. Before whatever has been patient for 57 years finally decides to finish what it started. This is what happened on Hill 428. Listen carefully. And when you're done, check the shadows in your room. Make sure you're alone. To understand the horror of what happened, you need to understand where it happened. You need to understand the jungle. The Central Highlands of Vietnam, my homeland. But the Highlands jungle was not the Vietnam I knew. It was older, darker, wrong. Even as a child, I heard stories. My grandmother spoke of the Highlands in whispers. She said ancient things lived there, things that were old when our ancestors were young, things that hunger. The jungle remembers, she told me. It remembers every drop of blood ever spilled, every scream ever screamed, and sometimes it wants more. I didn't believe her then. I was modern, educated. I believed in bullets and politics and the power of men. Now I believe her. Now I know she was right. The highlands are covered in triple canopy rainforest, 3 layers of vegetation so thick that sunlight becomes a memory. The emergent layer towers 150 feet high. The canopy creates a ceiling at 100 feet. And below, the understory, a tangle of vines and ferns and shadows so dense you could be arm's length from death and never see it coming. The Americans called it the Green Hell. They didn't know how right they were. Visibility was less than 20 feet, sometimes less than 10. The air was thick with moisture, 95% humidity every single day. It felt like drowning, like the jungle itself was trying to fill your lungs. The temperature never dropped below 85 degrees, never rose above 100, just constant, suffocating heat that made your thoughts slow and your vision blur. But it wasn't the heat that broke men. It wasn't the visibility or the terrain. It was the silence. The jungle should be loud, insects, birds, animals moving through the undergrowth, a symphony of life. But in parts of the highlands, there was nothing. Complete silence, absolute silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until you hear your own blood pumping. The kind of silence that means something is very, very wrong. Sound doesn't travel in the deep jungle. The vegetation absorbs it, swallows it. A rifle shot that would echo for miles in open terrain disappears after 50 yards, sometimes less. You could be surrounded by enemies and never hear them. They could be right behind you, breathing on your neck, and you'd never know. Until it was too late. I had fought in that jungle for 2 years before Hill 428. I thought I understood its dangers. I thought I was prepared. But nothing prepares you for the feeling of being prey. Nothing prepares you for the cold certainty that something is watching you, hunting you, playing with you. Nothing prepares you for Hill 428. Every soldier in the North Vietnamese army knew about the American snipers. We feared them more than bombs, more than napalm, more than anything. A sniper was invisible death. You never saw him, never heard him. Your friend would be walking beside you, alive, breathing, talking about home. And then he'd be on the ground with a hole in his skull. And you'd never know where the shot came from. There was one sniper everyone knew. They called him White Feather, Carlos Hatcock, an American Marine who wore a white feather in his hat as a taunt. Find me if you can. The stories about him were legend. 300 kills, maybe more. He once shot an enemy sniper through the man's own rifle scope. He crawled for days to assassinate a general, moving inches at a time. Our commanders put a bounty on his head, the highest bounty ever offered. Many tried to collect it. None succeeded. But here's what made Hadcock truly terrifying. He didn't just kill, he vanished. Our soldiers would report being hunted by a ghost. They'd find their comrades dead, perfect headshots, but no one ever saw the shooter. Hadcock understood something about human vision. The eye doesn't see objects, it sees movement and contrast. Eliminate both, and you become invisible. He could lie 5 feet from a man and never be seen. But Hadcock was human, skilled beyond measure, but human. He left traces, footprints, spent casings he might miss, bent grass where he lay. Whatever was on Hill 428 left nothing, no traces, no evidence, nothing. And Hadcock was 200 miles north, near the DMZ, nowhere near us. So who or what was hunting us? I've asked that question for 57 years. I still don't have an answer. But I have theories, dark theories. Theories that keep me awake at night. Theories that make me check the locks on my doors and the shadows in my corners. Let me tell you about the men who died. They deserve to be remembered. They deserve to have their names spoken. Lieutenant Tran Van Duke, our commander, 31 years old, a veteran of 4 years in the jungle, the steadiest man I ever knew. He had a wife, 2 daughters. He kept their photographs in his pocket. Sometimes at night, I'd see him looking at those pictures, his hard face softening into something almost peaceful. He survived the hill. He was one of the 11. But he didn't survive long after. In 1973, he put his service pistol in his mouth and pulled the trigger. His wife found him. The photographs of his daughters were clutched in his other hand. The official report said combat trauma, but I know the truth. Something followed him home, something that whispered to him in the darkness, something that wouldn't let him sleep, wouldn't let him forget, wouldn't let him live. I know because the same thing followed me. Lieutenant Pham was our political officer, Communist Party commissar, the kind of man you're supposed to hate, a spy, an ideologue.
But Pham was different. He was brave. He was kind. He asked about our families and actually listened to the answers. He died in the final ambush, shot through the chest. I held him as he bled out. "Tell my mother I was brave," he whispered. I never found his mother. She died in the bombing. Never knew what happened to her son. Maybe that's a mercy. Maybe it's better she didn't know. Private Nguyen Van Hai, 20 years old, the first to die. Shot through the head on a routine patrol. One moment alive, the next moment gone. His body was the first wrong thing I saw on that hill. When we found him, he was lying on his back, eyes open, staring at the canopy. Normal enough for a corpse. But his arms were folded across his chest, neatly, precisely, like someone had arranged him. No one mentioned it. Maybe I was the only one who noticed. Or maybe everyone noticed, and no one wanted to say it out loud. Because if someone arranged him, that meant someone got close. Close enough to touch him after he was dead. Close enough to pose him like a doll. And we never saw them.
We started climbing on July 13th, 1968. 34 men walking into the mouth of hell. I remember looking up at the hill before we began. It was unremarkable, just another hill and an endless sea of hills. About 1,400 feet elevation, steep slopes, dense jungle. But something about it felt wrong. The air around it was different, colder somehow, despite the heat. The sounds of the jungle seemed to die as we approached. Birds stopped singing. Insects stopped chirping. Just silence. That terrible silence. "Something about this place," Lieutenant Duck muttered. "I don't like it." We should have turned back. Right then. We should have reported the position compromised and returned to base. But we didn't. We had our orders. We were soldiers. So we climbed. It took 6 hours to reach the summit. 6 hours of hacking through undergrowth, slipping on wet vegetation, dragging ourselves up steep slopes. By the time we reached the top, every man was exhausted, drained, barely able to stand. But there is no rest. We had to establish the perimeter, dig fighting positions, set up observation posts. We worked until dark, and then the sun went down. I've experienced many nights in the jungle, hundreds of them, but that first night on Hill 428 was different. The darkness was absolute. No moon, no stars through the canopy, just blackness so complete it felt solid. And the cold. It shouldn't have been cold. The highlands are hot day and night, 85 degrees minimum. But as I lay in my foxhole, I was shivering. My breath misted in front of my face. I could see it, faintly, in the darkness. That's impossible. It's never cold enough in the highlands for visible breath. But I saw it. I felt it. And I felt something else. Eyes, watching. Not just watching, studying, like an insect under glass. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. And in the morning, the dying began. July 14th, the second day, the first deaths. Private High was on patrol, routine sweep, 50 meters from the perimeter. One moment he was walking, the next moment he was dead. I didn't hear the shot. No one did. One of the patrol members saw him fall and came running back to camp. When we reached the body, I noticed the arrangement again. High was lying on his back, arms folded across his chest, eyes open, staring at nothing. The same pose as... No, this was the first death. There was no same as. But the arrangement, that careful, deliberate positioning. Had he fallen that way? Had his arms just happened to land folded across his chest? Or had something arranged him after he died? Lieutenant Duke examined the wound. Rifle shot, left temple, exit wound on the right. "Sniper," he said, "professional." We searched for 3 hours, 20 men combing the jungle. We found nothing.
No firing position, no shell casings, no footprints, no broken vegetation, nothing. They policed their brass, Duck said. Trained snipers pick up their casings, standard procedure. But there should have been something. A depression in the leaves where they lay. A smear of mud on a tree trunk. Something. There was nothing. As if the shot had come from thin air. That evening, we found Corporal Pham, dead in his fighting position, shot through the chest, rifle still in his hands. The men in adjacent positions, less than 10 meters away, heard nothing. No shot, no cry, nothing. He had been dead for at least an hour. And his face. I've seen many dead men. Death usually relaxes the features. Slack jaw, empty eyes, peaceful almost. Phom's face was frozen in terror. Absolute, primal terror. His mouth was open in a silent scream. His eyes were wide, so wide the whites showed all around. He had seen something before he died. Something that frightened him more than the bullet that killed him. What do you see that scares you more than death? I didn't want to know. I still don't. But sometimes in my nightmares, I think I see it too.
July 15th, Day 3. 5 men dead. We found 3 more bodies that morning. Sentries, killed during the night. They were at their posts, rifles in their hands, eyes open, throats cut. But not just cut, carved. Symbols I didn't recognize were sliced into the flesh of their necks. Precise, deliberate, almost surgical. Lieutenant Duke saw the marks. His face went pale. "Don't tell the others," he whispered to me. "They were already scared enough." We buried the bodies without letting anyone look too closely. But I saw. I remember. Those symbols haunt me still. I've spent decades trying to identify them. Ancient Vietnamese, Chinese, Cambodian. Nothing matches. Whatever made those marks wasn't using any language I know. That afternoon, we saw them for the first time. Private Doe was on watch. He suddenly grabbed his rifle and opened fire, full automatic, 30 rounds into the jungle. "Contact! 50 meters! In the trees!" We all looked. I stared at the spot where he was pointing. I saw it. Just for a moment, a figure moving between the trees. But it was wrong. So wrong. It wasn't solid. I could see the jungle through it, through its body. Like looking through fog, like looking through smoke. And it moved wrong. Too smooth, too fluid. Not like a man walking, like something gliding, something that didn't touch the ground. Doe emptied his magazine. We all saw the bullets hit the trees behind the figure, through the figure. And it didn't react, didn't fall, didn't run, didn't even acknowledge the gunfire. It just faded. One moment it was there, transparent, impossible, and the next it was gone. Doe was shaking, crying. "I hit it," he kept saying. "I know I hit it." That night, July 16th, they came in force. 3 a.m. hours. The attack came from everywhere. Muzzle flashes in the darkness, but not normal flashes. These were cold. Blue-white instead of orange-yellow. Wrong. We returned fire, every man emptying magazines into the jungle. I was in my foxhole with Private Ben. We fired at the flashes, trying to track targets we couldn't see. And then I saw them clearly for the first time. 3 figures, maybe 30 meters away, moving through the trees. They were transparent, not invisible. I could see them, but I could see through them. The trees behind them were visible through their bodies. They moved like water, flowing between obstacles, not walking, not running,
flowing, and they were fast, so fast. One moment they were there, the next they were somewhere else. I fired. I know I hit one. I saw the bullet pass through it, saw the spray of leaves behind it where the round struck a tree. But the figure didn't react, didn't fall, didn't bleed. It turned toward me. I couldn't see a face, just an impression of features, dark hollows where eyes should be, a suggestion of a mouth. And cold, such cold. A wave of freezing air washed over me, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stare at that eyeless face. Then Bin grabbed my arm and pulled me down into the foxhole. The spell broke. The attack lasted 10 minutes. Then it stopped. Suddenly. Completely. When dawn came, we counted the dead. 4 more. Corporal Bui, Privates Men, Keen, and Sang. All killed in their fighting positions. All with that expression of absolute terror frozen on their faces. But that wasn't the worst part. Corporal Bui's body was wrong. He was found 15 meters from his foxhole. His rifle was still in the foxhole. His boots were still in the foxhole. But his body was 15 meters away. And he was arranged, arms folded, legs straight, facing upward. His eyes had been removed, not shot out, not torn, removed, cleanly, surgically. Where his eyes should have been, there was nothing, just empty sockets staring at the canopy. Lieutenant Duck looked at the body for a long time. Then he turned to us. We leave tonight. We stay here, we all die.
July 17th. We prepared to withdraw. 18 men left, 18 out of 34. We destroyed what we couldn't carry, buried the extra ammunition, prepared stretchers for the wounded. The radio was still dead, static on every frequency. We were cut off, alone. That afternoon, Lieutenant Duke saw one clearly. He was checking the perimeter when he stopped, raised his pistol, fired 3 rounds. When he came back, his face was gray. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. 30 meters, he said, clear as day. A man, but not a man. He looked at us with haunted eyes. He could see through it, through its chest, through its face. I fired 3 times. I hit it. I know I hit it. He swallowed. It smiled at me. It doesn't have a real face, but it smiled. And then it faded away. Lieutenant Pham tried to reason with him. Stress, hallucination, the mind under pressure. Duck grabbed Pham's arm, hard. I've been in combat for 4 years. I've seen everything. This is not in my mind. There's something on this hill, something that is not human, something that is hunting us. He released Pham's arm. And if we stay here, it will kill us all, one by one, until there's no one left. At 1830 hours, Duck assembled the survivors. We move at 0200, single file, eastern slope, fast and quiet. Don't stop for anything. He paused. Whatever's out there, it wants us off this hill. Maybe that's all it wants. Maybe once we leave, it will let us go. His voice dropped. Maybe. I could tell he didn't believe it. None of us did. But we had no choice. Stay and die,
or run, and maybe die. We chose to run.
0200 hours, July 18th, we began our descent. 18 men in single file, moving through absolute darkness, each man with one hand on the shoulder of the man in front. No lights, no sound, just careful footsteps and desperate prayers. For the first hour, nothing happened. We moved down the eastern slope, slow but steady. The terrain was treacherous, loose soil, slick vegetation. Men stumbled and fell, but we kept moving. I started to hope. Maybe Duck was right. Maybe they just wanted us gone. Maybe. Then I felt it. The cold. That same cold from the first night. That impossible, unnatural cold in the tropical jungle. It started at the back of my neck, spreading down my spine, filling my chest. And I knew they were following us. I couldn't see them. The darkness was absolute, but I could feel them, just beyond the edge of perception, moving with us, surrounding us, playing with us.
They could have killed us then. I know that now. They could have slaughtered us in the darkness, one by one, without a sound. But they didn't. They wanted us to run, wanted us to feel the terror, wanted us to know that we were prey and they were predators. They were enjoying themselves. We reached the base of the hill at 03:15. That's when they struck. Muzzle flashes everywhere. That cold blue-white light from 3 directions at once. Men screaming, men falling, men dying. I hit the ground, fired at the flashes, saw my bullets pass through the transparent figures without effect. Lieutenant Feem stood up, trying to rally the men. "Hold formation! Hold!" The shot took him through the chest. I was close enough to see his face, that moment of surprise, then pain, then nothing. He fell into my arms, blood soaking through his uniform, hot against my cold hands. "Tell my mother," he whispered. "Tell her I was brave." And he was gone. I ran. Through the jungle, through the darkness, branches tearing at my face, roots grabbing at my feet. Behind me the shooting continued, the screaming, the dying. Then silence. Complete, sudden, absolute. I kept running. At some point I fell, couldn't get up, lay in the mud, gasping, waiting for death. When dawn came, I found the rally point. 11 survivors, Lieutenant Duc, Sergeant Huang, 9 others. 11 out of 34. We waited until midday. No one else came. 23 dead on that hill. 23 men who would never go home. And here's what I've never told anyone, what I've kept secret for 57 years. When we gathered at the rally point, Duc counted heads, 11. He counted again, 11. But as we started walking, I counted too. 12. There was someone at the back of the line who hadn't been there before, a figure I didn't recognize, moving with us, part of the group, but not speaking. I turned to look, and there was no one there, just the 11 of us. But I swear, for a moment I saw a 12th figure, transparent, barely visible in the morning light, following us. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, my mind breaking under the weight of what I'd experienced. Maybe it was. Or maybe something came with us when we left that hill. Something that wasn't ready to let go.
I've spent 57 years trying to understand what happened on Hill 428. I've read about American Special Forces, MACV SOG, classified operations, experimental technology. I've read about Project Looking Glass, adaptive camouflage, materials that bend light, suits that make soldiers nearly invisible. Maybe that's what we faced. American technology decades ahead of its time. Operators wearing equipment that made them seem transparent. Maybe. But technology doesn't explain the cold. Doesn't explain the symbols carved into the throats of the dead. Doesn't explain the bodies arranged like offerings. Doesn't explain the eyes removed with surgical precision. Technology doesn't explain the terror frozen on the faces of the dead. Technology doesn't explain what I've felt every night for 57 years. Because something followed me home. I noticed it first in 1970, 2 years after the hill. I'd wake at 0300, always 0300, the same time the attacks came, and feel that cold, that watching presence. I'd hear footsteps in my house when I was alone, see movement in my peripheral vision that vanished when I turned.
I'd find my belongings rearranged, small things. A book moved from one shelf to another. A photograph turned face down. Nothing that couldn't be explained by forgetfulness. But I knew. I always knew. It's still here, after all these years. Still watching, still waiting. My wife left me in 1985. She said she couldn't take it anymore. The screaming at night, the way I'd stare at empty corners, the cold spots that followed me from room to room. She said there was something wrong with our house, something wrong with me. She was right, but it wasn't something in the house. It was something in me, or with me, or around me. One of the 11, that's what we called ourselves, the survivors. But we didn't really survive, not completely. Duke killed himself in 1973. Huang drank himself to death by 1995. The others gone now, all of them. Accidents, illnesses, suicides. I'm the last one. 80 years old, alone, waiting for the end. And I can feel it getting closer. The presence, the watcher, the thing from the hill. It's patient. It's always been patient, but I think its patience is running out. I see it sometimes now, not just feel it, see it. A figure in the corner of my room at night, transparent, barely visible, just standing there, watching.
It's the same figure I saw on the hill, the same eyeless face, the same cold smile. It's been waiting 57 years. I think it's almost time. So I'm telling this story now, while I still can, while I'm still myself. 23 men died on Hill 428 in July 1968. American records say no U.S. forces were in the area. No explanation has ever been given. The hill is still there. The jungle has reclaimed it. Locals avoid it. They say compasses don't work. Animals won't go near it. They say lights move through the jungle at night, searching, always searching. I know what those lights are looking for. Us, the ones who got away. But we didn't get away. Not really. We just delayed the inevitable. Whatever hunted us on that hill, it didn't let us escape. It followed us, all of us. And one by one, it's taken us back. I'm the last. And tonight, I think it ends. The cold is stronger than ever. The presence is closer than ever. When I close my eyes, I see that hill, that jungle, those transparent figures moving through the trees. I hear footsteps in my hallway, slow, deliberate, getting closer. I'm not afraid anymore. I've been afraid for 57 years. I'm tired of being afraid. So I'm telling you this story, telling you what happened, telling you the truth. Hill 428 is real. What happened there is real. And whatever hunted us, it's real too. Maybe it's still there, on that hill, waiting for the next soldiers who climb up, the next prey. Or maybe it's here, with me, in this room, reading over my shoulder as I speak these words. Listen. Can you hear it? The footsteps, getting closer. The cold, filling the room. The presence, right behind you. Don't turn around. Don't look. It doesn't matter anyway. 23 men died on Hill 428. I was one of the 11 who escaped. But no one escapes. Not really. It just takes longer for some of us. 57 years. That's how patient it is. That's how long it waits. And now it's here. The footsteps have stopped. The cold is absolute, and I can feel it right behind me, smiling. This is the truth about Hill 428. Remember it. And when you turn off the lights tonight, when the darkness closes in, when you feel that cold creeping up your spine, remember, you're not alone. You're never alone. They're always watching, always waiting, always.